In the summer of 2021, thousands of organized criminals discovered that the safest phone in the world had never been safe at all. They had paid as much as $2,000 for modified smartphones that could not make normal calls, browse the web, or communicate with ordinary devices. The network was private. Membership required an invitation. Messages appeared to be protected by powerful encryption. But every time a user pressed send, the message went to two places: the intended recipient and a hidden server accessible to law enforcement. The criminals had not been hacked. They had bought the surveillance system themselves. This was ANOM, the centerpiece of Operation Trojan Shield, one of the most audacious undercover operations in FBI history. It produced spectacular results. It also created a troubling question. If police can secretly operate an entire communication network, where does an investigation end and mass surveillance begin? The story started with a different company. Phantom Secure sold modified BlackBerry phones through invitation-only distributors. Cameras, microphones, and GPS functions were removed. The devices existed for one purpose: encrypted communication inside a closed network. They cost between $1,500 and $2,000 for 6 months of service. Phantom Secure claimed that police could neither read the messages nor recover them from a seized phone. Its customers included drug traffickers and organized crime groups around the world. In 2018, American authorities arrested company CEO Vincent Ramos. He later admitted that Phantom Secure had helped drug trafficking, concealed evidence, and laundered criminal proceeds. He received a 9-year sentence. The takedown created a vacuum. Thousands of criminals suddenly needed a new trusted network. And inside the FBI's San Diego office, someone realized that this crisis could become an opportunity. After Ramos was arrested, agents recruited a confidential source who had previously distributed Phantom Secure and Sky Global phones. He was already developing a successor called ANOM. Facing his own criminal exposure, he offered the project to the FBI in exchange for the possibility of a reduced sentence. Court records say the bureau paid him $120,000 for his work and almost $60,000 more for expenses. ANOM was not originally invented by the FBI, but before it reached customers, the FBI, the Australian Federal Police, and the source changed how it worked. They built a master key into the encryption system. Each message generated an encrypted blind copy. That copy traveled through an overseas server, was decrypted, re-encrypted with an FBI key, and delivered to investigators. This distinction matters. The FBI did not break strong encryption. It controlled the system before the users ever trusted it. The first test involved about 50 phones in Australia. According to the warrant affidavit, investigators found that every user in the test phase was discussing criminal activity. The experiment worked, but technology was only half the problem. The answer was not advertising, it was reputation. ANOM devices could not be purchased in a store or downloaded from an app market. A buyer needed a trusted distributor and often a recommendation from an existing user. That exclusivity made the phones feel more secure. In reality, it protected the operation by selecting customers already connected to criminal networks. Australian authorities placed a device near Hakan Ayik, an influential fugitive drug trafficker. Ayik reportedly liked the platform and recommended it to his associates, never realizing that he had become law enforcement's most valuable salesman. The most important product was not encryption, it was trust. ANOM was marketed as built by criminals for criminals. Its operators handled subscriptions and remote wipes. Police were not just listening, they were running a business criminals paid to use. The fall of EncroChat and Sky Global accelerated the migration. Eventually, more than 12,000 ANOM devices reached over 300 criminal syndicates in more than 100 countries. Investigators catalogued more than 27 million messages. Users discussed cocaine shipments hidden in pineapples, bananas, and tuna cans. They sent photographs of drugs, cash, weapons, shipping documents, and storage locations. Some planned money laundering and public corruption. Others discussed kidnappings and murders. The system gave police an extraordinary view of organized crime. It also gave them an extraordinary burden. If investigators saw a murder being planned, they could intervene, but an obvious intervention might reveal that ANOM was compromised and destroy years of work. Authorities sometimes had to protect a potential victim while hiding the real source of the warning. By 2025, the Justice Department said the operation had helped prevent more than 150 threats to life. Then came the legal problem. The FBI could not simply collect every domestic message without individual legal authority. American devices were therefore geofenced out of the FBI's main collection system. For the international traffic, a third country obtained local court orders and sent copies of the server data to the United States through a mutual legal assistance treaty. Official court filings still call it only the third country. Investigative reporting later identified it as Lithuania, but the FBI has never publicly confirmed that name. The arrangement allowed data to reach the FBI 3 times a week. It also created what critics describe as legal Tetris, surveillance that might have been difficult to authorize in one country became possible by routing it through another. The final authorization expired on June 7, 2021. The operation had a deadline. Around the world, more than 10,000 officers prepared for a coordinated takedown. Local teams received targets, addresses, and evidence packages. On June 7th and 8th, police searched more than 700 locations and arrested hundreds of suspects before criminal networks could warn one another. The initial operation produced more than 800 arrests. By 2025, the Justice Department placed the total at approximately 1,200. Authorities reported seizing more than 12 tons of cocaine, 3 tons of methamphetamine or amphetamine, 17 tons of precursor chemicals, 300 firearms, and $58 million in various currencies. More than 50 drug laboratories were dismantled. For many defendants, the evidence was devastating. They were confronted not with vague intelligence, but with their own messages, photographs, and instructions. Several ANOM distributors later pleaded guilty in the United States, but the legal argument did not disappear. Defense lawyers challenged whether evidence collected through a secret foreign server and transferred across borders should be admissible. American courts rejected suppression claims from extradited foreign distributors. In 2025, Germany's highest criminal court also permitted ANOM evidence in serious crime cases, and the country's constitutional court declined to overturn that approach. Operation Trojan Shield was unquestionably ingenious, but its most important lesson is often misunderstood. It did not prove that encryption itself is useless, and it did not prove that every legitimate messaging service should contain a government backdoor. Investigators succeeded because ANOM was a closed system designed for a customer base they believed was overwhelmingly criminal. The FBI controlled the platform, the servers, and the distribution network from the beginning. The operation exploited a human weakness, not a mathematical one. Criminals trusted ANOM because it was expensive, exclusive, and recommended by people they respected, while the real threat was already inside. The result was one of the largest organized crime investigations ever conducted, and a model of surveillance powerful enough to deserve scrutiny. So was ANOM the perfect sting, targeted, creative, and devastating to violent criminal networks? Or was it a warning about what governments can build when secrecy, technology, and international law are combined? The answer may depend less on whether the people being watched were criminals, and more on whether the same method could ever be used against everyone else.